Welcome, everybody. I have the beautiful Lauren here with me. Thank you so much for being here, Lauren. This is a huge deal. And I know that a lot of people they followed Gumball Love maybe for years. Maybe they just arrived this week and they're like, what is this all about? And I know they know that I coach people behind the scenes. I've been coaching for years. You and I have known each other for a long time. And so I just thought when we were doing our one-to-one call, you were so good at articulating your journey, your milestones, everything that you have experienced this past year, the growth. And I was like, wow, I want other people to hear what this is like and just hear it from you because you speak so well and you have done the work. So first, I just want everybody to hear like how you found out about Gumball Love and like where this really started for you.
Okay. Well, I'm so happy to be here.
Yes.
So thank you for having me. So my journey began a long time ago when you were on Snapchat.
Oh my God.
That's where I first found you.
Wow.
And do your little like the snaps and the clips. And I was like, wow, she's, making a lot of sense. And I didn't feel so alone because back then I was in my 30s and all of my friends were married and they didn't get, just the dating scene in New York, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And you were living in New York at the time. So you were totally getting it.
Yep.
And then you moved over to Instagram and I would watch your stories and you were putting out more and more content that was resonating with me. And then you were doing your podcast and that was really resonating with me. Mm-hmm. And then after so many breakups with basically dating the same person over and over, just with a different face and a different name, I couldn't take it anymore. I noticed that it was a pattern and I would keep saying, what's wrong with me? Putting blame on myself. So then after my last breakup, you and I had talked like in between, we would do like a session here and there. But after my last breakup a year ago in July, I said, you know what? I have to really commit to myself and figure out what is wrong or not necessarily wrong, but where can I break this pattern to get to where I want to go to? And I really committed myself and, I stayed the course with you and I did the work and, you'll come out the other side, but it's been a journey.
Yeah.
And I'm still a work in progress. I'm not perfect and I still make mistakes and question myself. But when you have the tools and the education, you grow with it and you figure it out.
Yeah. What do you think it was about that breakup or like if people are watching and they're like, you got to a point where it was like, this is enough. Can you remember what that was where it was like, this is my breaking point?
I just felt like I kept giving my all 110% to people that weren't seeing me, to men that were not seeing me and my worth. And deep down, I knew my worth and I knew what I brought to the table. I have education. I'm a social worker. I'm independent. I come from a great family. What more could you ask for in my mind? But for some reason, I wasn't matching up with the people that I was choosing. And the last one, it was pure exhaustion. I just was exhausted. I felt battered as a woman because it's bad enough you're not getting treated the way that you deserve to be treated. But then when it doesn't work out, you're blaming yourself. So you're abusing yourself and, emotionally, and you're putting yourself down. And at that point, I said, you know what? I need to stop this and I have to grow from this and learn from this and stop making the same mistake because I'm breaking my own heart over and over, getting involved with men that do not want what I want. I'm not speaking up for myself because I see the red flags and I know, I see all the signs, but I go through them thinking I can change this person. They're going to see how, amazing I am and they're going to change for me. And I had to really change my frame of mind and stop all of that.
What do you think your weakness was, your go-to kind of guy? What was his pattern?
My go-to was always the pity me guy. It was always the guy that came on very strong and it was, passionate and hot and heavy, and they were so into you, and you wanted to see them, and they wanted to see you morning, noon, and night, and you thought, wow, this is it. When and it's so easy. But then as 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks started to go on, if I hadn't been ghosted before then, I started to see the person's true colors, and they were not what they portrayed themselves to be or who I thought they were. And I was so stuck on how romantic and how, serendipitous the beginning was, that it was very hard for me to let go, because I had in my mind who I thought that they were, and I wanted them to be, because they were that person at a certain point. And, I made all kinds of excuses, and then it always ended up, they didn't have money. They, ended up not having a job. They had, all of these different issues. And then me being a social worker, I'm naturally nurturing and I want to take care of everybody. I wanted the person to need me, because then they wouldn't leave me. But really what ended up happening was that I lost myself, because I was like with an emotional vampire that sucked all my energy out. And then I was left at the end. Meanwhile, I knew that I should be the one leaving, but I felt so bad for them, or I felt that they needed me so much that I didn't leave, but I left myself.
Yes. Oh, I can relate so much. I know everybody's like nodding their head in agreement, because we all can relate, especially if we're here in this group. Everybody's like, yes, I relate. Yeah. So how did you, like, if people are feeling like, okay, this is me, this is where they are right now, what would you say to that person? Like, what would, what did you do first? What do you feel like as you look back? Because, we met, you were frustrated. I remember you having tremendous anxiety about even dating. Can you talk about that a little bit? Just like how much fear you had around it?
Yeah, I had anxiety. For a few reasons. I had anxiety because of my age. I'm 41. So last year when I started, I was 40. So I was already going through the age anxiety, and I already went through like a grieving time where I said, I may not get married. I may not have children. I never wanted to go into being a single mom right off the bat. If you're with somebody, it doesn't work out, that's fine. But that just wasn't for me. So I already was having anxiety about that. And that's why I was dating so many men that were basically losers, because I felt like I was on this timeline and I was trying to beat the clock. But really, I gave myself so much heartache. If I would have just sit still and breathed and just concentrated on myself, I would have avoided a lot of this. But at the same time, it was a, growing experience. So, that was a big thing for me. And then I think last year, I just totally committed to myself. I basically surrendered, and I said, I have to change my, frame of mind. So I had anxiety about my age, but I also had anxiety after doing the work that I was going to make all of these mistakes, and I was going to fall back into this, pitfall, because, we are who we are, and we all have certain tendencies. And one of mine is that I'm very prone to anxiety and at times depression. And I was very afraid I was going to get involved with another wrong person disguised as a, prince.
Yes.
But as time went on, and I started to educate myself with what we discussed one-on-one, what we discussed in the group, I started to understand my thinking more and my behaviors more, and why I was attracted to these certain types of men, which were bad boys. I was always into a bad boy. I was always into a rebellious type. I was always into a good-looking type. But then I really realized, once my father passed away, that that's not what's going to get you through hard times. And there are certain characteristics that I have to look for, especially getting older, that you want in a partner that you're hopefully going to marry.
Yeah. So you got your priorities in order. Like, this is, I think when you lose someone so significant, do you feel like that changed how you look at, okay, I'm with these bad boys. I really want to find the right person. I've got to
Yeah.
change. I've got to change what I'm doing. I've got to make this a priority.
I started to kind of see myself in other people's eyes, especially my dad that passed away. And I started to say, like, I'm somebody's daughter. I'm somebody's sister. I'm somebody's granddaughter. I'm a niece. And my family, if your family, if you have good relationships with them, if they knew how you were being treated and what you were taking just to feel loved, they would be so hurt for you.
Yeah.
And that was part of me reframing my mind. Like, my father would never want me in a relationship with somebody like this. And that's part of like realizing your self-worth too, is having those little like, you know, aha moments that you mean so much to so many people. And so many people really do love you for you. And you don't have to change yourself to fit, you know, some guy's criteria or, you know, whatever he's looking for. He's just not the right one for you. And you're not the right one for him. That was another thing, is that I always was worried about if the guy liked me. I never went home from a date saying, do I like him? I just wanted to be accepted. And that was also part of like low self-esteem.
Yeah. I remember you making that shift. How, like, if people are looking at like, okay, Lauren, this sounds great, because I remember when this is just like a surreal moment, because I could see this confident, beautiful, you know, together girl. I could see it was almost like I could see future Lauren when we started working together, and you couldn't see her yet. And now she's here, which is just so cool. Like, you're just so poised, and, you know, you're sitting differently. I can just tell the confidence is genuine. It's coming from an authentic place. And so can you help people to understand where that comes from in the journey? You start doing coaching, and like, how do you feel like you evolved through the process of our one-to-ones? You did our group coaching. You show up every single week. You're still showing up, even though we don't reveal what's happened, but like, you know, you're still showing up and you're still doing the work. So if someone's sitting there like, I'm in online dating hell, or I just got through a breakup, or I'm with a guy that I know isn't right for me, but I feel like I'm never going to find anybody else. Like, what would you say to that girl who's like sitting there contemplating the journey?
I mean, it's been a tough one for me. I've never been engaged. I came close twice. I've never officially lived with a man. I've never been married. I don't have children. So for me, there were just so many moments of despair and hopelessness. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've come home and cried and saw all of my friends getting married and having children. And I was always wholeheartedly happy for them, but I would come home and be sad for myself. But I turned it around last year, and it was really hard. Like, my breakup was not easy, only because my ex would not let go, and I wanted to, as you know. So it was really hard. But I started to change from the time that I would wake up in the morning till the time I would go to sleep. So I basically purged. I didn't date. I gave myself a year, but I was also grieving my dad. So, you know, some women may not give themselves that much time, but I did not go on any apps. I tried not to think about it. I mean, it's always in the back of your mind, you know, maybe if I go to this party, I'll meet somebody, but I really tried. And I said, this is going to be my time. And in the morning before work, I would always speak to a friend of mine, and it was always a toxic conversation. And I stopped speaking to her. And before I went to work, I bought myself a gratitude book off of Amazon. And there, every day I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for from the day before, because it just instantaneously puts you in, you know, a positive frame of mind starting the day. And then the gratitude book that I have will say like to write an affirmation or 2. And then I started, you know, obviously listening to your podcast when it comes out. And then I started to listen to manifesting podcasts, Glennon Doyle, just anybody that can get me into a positive frame of mind without like becoming toxic positivity, because there is such a and I just tried to surround myself by uplifting things. Like, I didn't watch any depressing movies. I went to sleep early. I changed all my bedding in my bedroom just to change it up. I didn't even spend a lot of money. I went to Home Goods. I think I remember sending you a picture.
Yeah.
Just to make my home more inviting and to change it.
So you changed your environment. You changed what you were listening to. You started a practice of gratitude. You constantly kept good things. You were feeding your mind good things. And so I think sometimes when it's like, wow, where did I change? Or at what point did that transformation happen? But it's that little by little where, and you had coaching, you had the group, you had a constant support system around you, because I think sometimes, like from week to week, you might feel like, oh my gosh, this is not a good week. But then you plug into the group, or we do a one-on-one call, and then you're able to refresh and get that perspective. So maybe give everyone a little bit of insight. Like what is the one-to-one coaching like? How did that feel as a part of your journey, and also the group coaching?
The one-to-one always made me feel really good. I almost felt like I was talking to my therapist. It was just like, I would have a notebook, right? And I would write things down that we would discuss. Or before my session, I always write down like different things that are sticking out of my mind that I have to address. And it basically is, like how you and I are speaking now. It's like speaking to a girlfriend and getting feedback and a little bit of validation of what I'm thinking and feeling through, and trying to reframe everything. And then the group is, it's great. Like the girls are great. It's not overly crowded. So you have a chance to speak.
Yep.
Some weeks we have like a guest speaker. Other weeks we're just winging it and checking in, and everybody's venting. And trust me, there were weeks where I felt hopeless. I'm like, this is never going to change. I'm doing all of the work and nothing is changing. But it did. It changed when I least expected it. And that's why, girls that are coming into the group now, I always feel a little bad, because I don't want them to think that like somebody like me or somebody like another girl in our group where we've been doing it for a year, that we're okay. And I still sometimes like relapse with my anxiety and question myself. And I really enjoyed my time being single. I really did. I remember, I think I even told you, like New Year's, it was my first New Year's spending it alone. And I stayed in my house. I watched When Harry Met Sally. I watched all these like romantic comedies, and I ordered in food, and I lit my candles, and I had intentions for the year, and I did, whatever I could to be uplifted and kind of think about it like the unknown it's not a bad thing. It doesn't always have to be scary. It could be scary good, because you never know what's around the corner.
And that was going into 2022, right?
Yeah.
So you said when you went into 2021, you were like, I've got to be on a date. I got to find somebody. But then the next year, your New Year's Eve was completely different. I've done a few New Year's Eves like that, where you're just like, I'm on my own. I remember I did on Snapchat, where I was like, I counted down in the living room by myself, because I didn't want to be out. And I was doing the same thing, like dream boards and planning goals, having my own champagne. It was like, you really can celebrate. I feel like it's a huge, that's a huge shift from one year to the next, of just feeling like I've got to desperately have a date and kiss someone at midnight, to I'm writing my intentions, setting my goals, and ordering my own food, lighting candles, and watching When Harry Met Sally. It's like, truly you have arrived.
I also ordered, I know it's kind of like woo-woo, but I also ordered from Etsy like a cleansing bath, like an Epsom salt thing. And I stayed there and I just sat with my champagne. I have a picture of myself in the tub because I wanted to remember it.
Yes.
And I was embracing it. And it was so hard for me to do all of these years, to lean into my singleness, to embrace it, because they always looked at it as a negative thing.
Yes.
Because, most people that I'm around, they went from their parents' house to their husband's house. They never lived on their own. And I was the exception to the rule. So I always felt like the odd man out. But now I realize it was such a blessing. And I wouldn't change it. If I changed something and it didn't get me to where I am now, I wouldn't be happy, because I really know who I am now, and I value myself. And I know that no matter what happens, I can take care of myself.
Yes, which is huge, because I think a lot of people, they come to me, and this is another reason I wanted to have you on, Lauren, is because people that think about coaching, there's sometimes there's people out there, and I'm sorry if this is you, where you're furiously going from one dating app to the next, and they're processing a great breakup, and then they immediately want to get online and meet somebody else. They're hurting, they're in pain, they need to heal, they need to get comfortable in that singleness to get to the point where you are able to celebrate yourself on New Year's Eve. Like those are big moments of being able to stand on your own. And so that's also just something I want to point out, that's exactly like if you are in that place where you are like, okay, I'm ready to do what Lauren did and do the work. And it doesn't have to be a year, but I think that's a year seems like a long time. And you did that year going into 40, right? So that's
40, yes.
Yeah. So it wasn't like you were like, I took that year when I was 25. No, you were like 39 to 40. I'm going to take a year and focus on myself and do the healing and do the work. And it's not easy, right? I think, and I'm glad you're saying that, because I think people come in and they're like, oh, I'm just supposed to be okay overnight. And with our group, it's like, it's okay to be a mess. It's okay to not feel perfect. You don't have, this is a messy journey. I always say, like, I'm the coach that you can talk about the same guy over and over with because your friends are like, leave him, and they don't understand there's a process in leaving that guy. So, sometimes we have to start there of, we have to shed the old guy. So you were in the process of doing that, but also you had broken up, but there were some residuals. And then you were also focusing on yourself. So, okay, so let's fast forward. So can we talk about new love? That you have because I think too, I tell you guys this over and over again, you never know when your last day as a single girl is. You never know when it's coming. So as much as you're toasting yourself by yourself on New Year's Eve, those days are limited. That's not going to be forever. And so if you can relish in those and enjoy it, because it's such a preparation for a relationship. So I know it's fairly new, but how is this relationship different? How do you feel going into a new relationship versus how you felt before?
So unbelievably different that sometimes I have to question myself because I'm so calm about it. I mean, when I would date a wrong guy, I was sick. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. My stomach was always in knots. And I used to think that was love. I was like, oh, I'm in love. But it wasn't. It was my gut saying, this person is not right for you. Yeah. And with my new love, I mean, I was nervous, but not where I was sick. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was nervous, excited. And there was a difference. And I just remember saying, like, I'm just going to go into this and be myself. I'm not going to try to be perfect because I'm not perfect. If I curse, I curse. If I, you know what I mean? Yep. Like, I always was just so much like I had all these rules for myself and I didn't want to do that. The only thing I wanted to do was, take it slowly, which it's been at a very good pace. And he also, wants to too, because, he's been divorced for a few years, but same thing, you want to like tread lightly, but this is the person I want to be with. And it's so relaxed. And like I said, I don't worry about waiting a certain amount of time before texting him. Like if I want to text him, I text him. If I want to call him, I call him. Yes. Before I would be so timid about it because I didn't want to come off as needy. I was afraid to ask for what I wanted and say what I wanted in my future with him. I'm not afraid. I tell him I would love to be married and I, would love to have a home together and, all of these things. And he's so receptive to it. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to do that tomorrow, but at least, you're on the same page that you want the same things and you guys can build your relationship and hopefully, get to that point.
Yes.
But it's different.
You don't have to play games.
No. No. And like I said, I question myself because I'm like, wow, I'm so relaxed. Am I like, because I'll feel like I'm falling in love. I feel it. It's happening. But then I'm so relaxed about it that I question myself. But it is. Yeah. It's just not what I'm used to.
Oh, it's so amazing. It's like because you're comfortable. So this is where I even did a podcast about the butterflies debate of having butterflies. So butterflies is anxiety or excitement, right? So it can be both. But there's also truth to it doesn't have to be fear-based. And I think that's where people get confused. Like you don't realize that intensity is coming a lot from fear. And when you remove that and you're relaxed, and then you can be yourself, because look, you did all this work so you could relax, so you could be yourself. And you went into this like, look, take it or leave it. If I curse, I curse. I can't change who I am for you. I'm going to be me. And being you turns out is just fine. Isn't it amazing? Yes.
And you realize it just always sounds so cliche when people would say, oh, when you meet the right one, you won't have to, have the rules and you won't have to worry and it'll be easy. And I never thought that I would feel this way. And I never thought that I would find it. I really thought I was going to be alone and I was okay with it. I mean, I think we even spoke about it and you did a podcast on it because I did sit with it and say to myself, if this is as good as it's going to get, and this is the hand that I'm dealt, and I'm going to be alone and I'm not going to find that person, am I okay? And am I happy? And I was. I mean, you always want to be loved and you want somebody to, live life with, but I was okay. I could live that life. I mean, it was fine. And it had its moments,
right?
And I remember even getting involved with him, I got a little anxiety. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, that's it. My single days are over. I could just tell right away. This is a relationship guy. And I did get a little freak out. But now I'm okay.
Yeah, and that's the great thing too. We're here to support you all the way through that. I started to realize as clients had successes, I was like, okay, just because you're in a new relationship, you still need support. You still need to kind of get through the initial beginning. And then I always say like our coaching calls get more and more boring because you don't have any anxieties, you don't have any issues to talk about. It's just regular everyday stuff. And you're finally like, oh, so this is what all these married women have been talking about. I would look at married women my whole life and be like, how is it so easy for her? What does she have that I don't? Like, what is going on? Like, why am I not meeting why is everyone else meeting somebody before me? And that's why I became obsessed with learning the patterns that we aren't seeing. So what would you say to a girl watching right now? And she's like, man, I want to do this. Who do you think is ready to do this? And what advice would you give to somebody that's like, okay, Lauren, I want what you have, but I still feel stuck. What's your advice to her?
I just feel like you have to take the first step. And I know it's so hard because so many women, they're single moms and they don't always have the time. And sometimes, it's a financial thing, but I mean, you have to carve out some time for yourself and commit to yourself. I mean, maybe you don't have the time in the car to listen to podcasts and all of these things, but you really just have to make the first step. And that's what I did. I was so fragile when I started. I mean, I was going through a lot besides relationship, being broken up. It was just, my father, it was a big transitional time. And you just have to listen and you have to pay attention and like do what you're told to, like whatever you're getting led by, you have to follow it because you think that you know it all and you think that your way is the right way. But when you finally get to that point where you're doing the same thing over and over and you're getting the same result, you have to change it up. And it doesn't have to be all the things that I did, but it could just be a little something every day and to stick with it. And you'll start to see the changes. I mean, it took me, I was single from July and I met my boyfriend. We started dating in June. So it was like 11 months.
Yeah.
And it went by very quickly. And, and you have to stop the serial dating because it's not good. You have to cleanse.
Yes.
It's not.
Yes, that's learning that you're right. It's learning that there is a cycle that's repeating. And so that's the first step. That's why my motto is stop the cycle, discover your worth, find true love. So that's exactly what you did. We stopped the cycle. So part of stopping it is looking at, okay, what is it? So when we meet, we have you do a quiz on the current guy or the past guy. We find the patterns by looking at the past. How was that for you, looking at a guy, looking at doing the quiz and looking at those patterns and seeing things differently? Do you remember your first thoughts on the quiz?
It was very helpful to me because I knew I was dating the same type of person, but it was good to put a label to them. Mm-hmm. You know, like, this is a pity me guy. Yeah. This is a cheat me guy. And then, you know, it breaks down what are the characteristics. And then something else that I did that I think you also had us do was, like, I wrote a list of everything that, you know, I wanted in a partner or in a relationship. Mm-hmm. But then I also wrote, like, a non-negotiable list. Mm-hmm. And I kept that. And I was like, I'm not going out with somebody that smokes. I'm not going out with somebody that doesn't have a regular job. Mm-hmm. You know, there were just certain things that were they were deal breakers for me, and I'm not even going to go there. So if somebody spoke to me that had a history of drugs, I said, I'm not going there again. Mm-hmm. You know, it's great if you're recovered and everything else, but I've just been put through the mill and I've had bad experiences and I don't want to deal with that anymore. Yep. So that helped me. And also, it's very hard, but I tried not to compare myself to others. Mm-hmm. And some of that was also trying to stay off of social media a little bit. Because you could just, it's just, you get so sucked into it all. Yes. And even with your friends and stuff, you know. And I would also look at relationships of my friends and family and say, would I want to be in that marriage? Like, no. Do I want to go home to that? No. You know, so, you know, we can, like, glorify and glamorize it in our minds. But if you really sit and think about it, and you sit and think about some of the marriages and relationships that you're around, you wouldn't want to be in that. You know?
100%. Yes. Yeah, I think when we feel so lost, we start looking around, and then it's really a form of beating yourself up. Like, oh, this person has it and I don't. What's wrong with me? When in reality, what you're looking at, you wouldn't even want it anyway. And so all the things you did were so important, just cleaning up what you're listening to, no depressing music or movies, and putting positive things in your mind, being grateful, committing to a time period of doing the work. So for people that are saying they're like, I don't know if I can do a year. Can I do a year when I'm almost 40, or maybe someone's in their 40s or almost 50 or almost 60 or whatever they are. And it's like thinking about giving yourself that time, I know makes people feel anxious because they're like, that's the one thing I don't have, and I don't want to be another year older. Yet, do you want to be another year older and then with another wrong guy, and then you have to get over that person? I just saw a statistic that the average person has 3 significant relationships, and it takes an average of 6 months to get over that person. So we spend a year and a half of our lives, that's only if you've gone through 3 breakups, getting over someone. I was like, oh my gosh, just think of that. Like, if I fall in love with the wrong person, then not only is it the time I've spent with them, but then the time that it takes to get over them and do the healing. So it's like one wrong choice can end up being minimum a year invested in the wrong person, and then you're starting over. So committing to that time, the investment in yourself for the long-term gain. And it's exactly what happened to you. Like, now you have a solid foundation under you, and you didn't have, like, yes, we did coaching, but part of this process is to get you standing on your own. So where you don't need constant, like, sometimes I think when we're in therapy, like, we feel like we have to keep going to therapy to get help, like they have all the answers. Whereas with this method, you build that strength and that confidence. So when you walk away, you're on a different platform. You walk off and you're good to go. And do you feel that sense of wholeness? Yeah, and you have it in you. Every woman has it in them all along. Like, if you think about everything you've been through in your life, you're so strong. You know, and you have it in you. It's just you have to build yourself back up, and you need a support system to do that with people, especially women, that are understanding where you're coming from. Because even in the group, we all live in different states,
We all are different ages. We come from different backgrounds, but I could be speaking and, everybody else is identifying with me or vice versa. Yeah. It's just so relatable across the board, across the ages. And you really feel like you are not alone. And that's what starts to make you feel some light at the end of the tunnel. And then when you start to hear success stories too, it makes you feel very hopeful. So, that for me was important. I know some people don't like to participate. There are times when I'm in the group and I'm just listening and I don't even have an intention to speak, and then I end up jumping in. Yeah. Because, you're tired or whatever, but it's an hour a week. Yeah. You can do it. Yeah. You can meet the hour, Yeah,
I'm glad you said that, because sometimes like people think, oh my gosh, what is this going to mean from a commitment standpoint? And it is a commitment, don't get me wrong, but I want people to know, like, you can come to the calls in your PJs, or you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to be, or if you just need to listen, or you're like, I'm hanging on by a thread today, but I just need to be here and I need the support. And it's amazing. Like, you get in there and you think, just like you said, you think you're all alone. You realize that you're not. And that's such a comforting feeling, because I do think the older we get, the more isolated we feel being single compared to our married friends or friends in relationships. And then we feel like we don't have that outlet. And I really think that's where I would start to get like in a weird place or spiral down or get depressed, because I was afraid to say what was bothering me, and that I was sad, and that, I didn't want to say to my married friends, like, I'm sad that, I don't have anybody and you do, and I've got to leave your house and go home. I remember
I feel like when you're going through it and you're going through a breakup where you're just going through failed, date after date, you just get to a place where, at least for me, I started talking about it a lot because I didn't understand it. And sometimes I talked about it with the wrong people. And then I felt like I was almost entertainment for them, especially people that haven't dated in like 20 years. It was almost like you would be mocked a little bit. Yeah. So I learned to not share or overly share. So that's why the group helped me too, especially the one-on-ones as well. There's not a lot of people going to understand it.
Yes. All those experts that give you dating advice, and it always seems like it happens at a table where like everyone's listening, and it is interesting. People that have been in relationships for a long time, new people or people dating, it feels like, exciting to hear about it. And so then, you do become entertainment, and that's very, very frustrating. So sorry, I lost my camera again. So Lauren, this has been amazing. I'm so happy for you that you have found love, and it is just like brings so much joy to my heart to see how the woman I saw underneath that fear and that anxiety has bloomed and blossomed right before my eyes. I could just see you. I was like, oh, I just can see that girl in there. And now it's just like, it's so incredible to see the evolution to become, like you said, you have it in you, and you did, but you brought that woman forward, and that it's like a transformation. Like you truly did have it in you, and we just have to push through those layers and build the strength. And now you built the strength. And so God forbid if something happens in this relationship, I don't think it will, but I feel like that's also where you walk away going, if something happens, I'm okay. I know I have a new strength. I'm not going to be weak. You would never date another Gumball guy ever again.
No. And you have the tools, and it's just such a great, it's a good community. And I wouldn't be here without you, without the girls. I really wouldn't be. Even if I wasn't dating somebody, just me alone, I wouldn't be where I am. And I invested in myself. I said, I'm do this, even if I can't get my nails done every week or whatever it is. It was more important to me than other things that I was spending my money on. How much crap to buy from Amazon that we don't need, and you add it up, you can do it.
Yes. We know Lauren is a shopper. I know. I have to be careful talking about anything. You're like, where is it? Let me see it. So Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time
Thank
out of an
you so much.
evening to share your story, to encourage others. I know that so many women will watch this and that are watching right now that are encouraged, that are uplifted, that feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel because, you know, when people come in, they're like, I feel so discouraged. I feel like there is no hope, but there is. And I so appreciate you taking the time. And we're going to keep in touch and follow your story. And I can't wait to see what new milestones happen. But thank you again for being here. It means the world.